Hello everyone. Now in this video we will continue with the explanation of MAC layer. In the last video we have seen the first mechanism implemented in the MAC layer of WLAN, that was DFWMAC-DCF with CSMA-CA. Now in this video we will see the remaining two MAC layer mechanisms which are implemented in the wireless LANs. Okay, so the second mechanism is known as DFWMAC-DCF with RTS or CTS extension. This mechanism, as we know, is used by the distributed coordinator function, and it is used for avoiding hidden terminal problems. Okay, so we have seen what are hidden terminal problems and how RTS and CTS helps in solving those problems. So we will simply take a simple example of sending a unicast packet to understand how the communication happens using this medium access method. Okay, so if you see the diagram, there is a sender, receiver and other stations which are shown in the diagram. So station can send RTS. Let's say a packet arrives at a sender. Since we have to solve a hidden terminal problem, we are using a RTS CTS. So we cannot directly start transmitting the data packets. Before transmitting data packets, first we have to send the RTS, that is request to send. So what happens when we can send a request to send packet? First we are waiting for DIFS amount of time, because this is DCF, distributed coordination function. So for DCF, DIFS is a waiting period, after which, after waiting for this much amount of time, a sender sends a RTS packet to the receiver. When receiver receives it, it waits for SIFS amount of time and responds back with the CTS, that is clear to send, if it is ready to receive. Okay, if it is not ready to receive, it will not send the CTS. One another thing that is done by the sender, which is important for other stations, is that when it sends the RTS, it sets the NAV. Now what is NAV? NAV is a reservation parameter. Full form is net allocation vector. It is a time for which sender will require medium for complete transmission of data. So net allocation vector is a time for which sender wants to reserve a medium so that it can completely transmit the data. So along with RTS, NAV is also set, and that NAV tells other stations that they cannot access the medium as long as NAV exists, or they cannot access a medium for amount of time denoted by the NAV. So other stations cannot access the medium during this NAV. Okay, so that is the important thing for other stations. So after sending the acknowledgement by the receiver, which is received by the now sender again waits for SIFS amount of time. Why SIFS? Previously it waited for DIFS, now it is waiting for SIFS, because DIFS was waiting for accessing the medium. Now SIFS for waiting after receiving a control packet CTS. So after receiving a control packet, only SIFS amount of time wait is required. So after waiting for SIFS, it sends the data and expects an acknowledgement from the receiver. Now receiver acknowledges via acknowledgement ACK packet after waiting for SIFS amount of time. Again it is a control packet, so only SIFS amount of time is sufficient, and that marks the end of the communication. Okay, now if you observe the diagram, another important point, once receiver acknowledges with the CTS, NAV is readjusted. Now why readjusted? Let's see that. If after sending the RTS, receiver does not send the CTS, that means receiver is not ready for receiving the packet, then CTS may be sent over here after a longer period of time. So the actual NAV which was decided by the sender may extend for a longer period. So that's why after receiving the CTS, NAV is readjusted. In this example, receiver acknowledged in time as predicted by the sender, so NAV will not be changed. But in some cases, if CTS packet is not received in time, NAV has to be modified, and that's why it may be adjusted after receiving a CTS. Okay, that's what it is meant in the second NAV, which is shown over here. Okay, so after complete transmission of packets or after a complete communication, other stations understand that NAV is completely over. Now they can access a medium, so they will wait for DIFS amount of time, and after that contention period will start. Now in this contention period, back off timer is started by the other stations, and they will access the medium based on the fact that whoever has a lesser back off time, it will access the medium first. This concept we have seen in the last video. Okay, so this is how with RTS and CTS DFWMAC-DCF can be implemented. Okay, so the last mechanism now, DFWMAC-PCF with polling. Now polling is a point coordination function, so it is rarely used. For polling, PCF requires access point that controls how to access a medium by polling each individual node. So during the PCF, nodes will not compete with each other, but each one will get a chance to send or a chance to access a medium after access point asks them to do so. So since it requires an access point, this mechanism is not supported by ad hoc networks. Okay, so ad hoc networks cannot use this function, so it does not provide any kind of quality of service. Okay, there is no central authority to manage the quality of service, so best effort services are provided in this case. The point coordinator, which is usually the access point, splits the access time into a super frame periods. So entire time duration is divided into super frame periods. Why super frames? Let's see that. Each super frame comprises of two periods. One is a contention free period, that is our polling period, and second is a contention period. If a user fails to respond during a polling period, it can still try to access a medium during the contention period. Okay, so that's why there are two periods. Let's say there are 4 users currently in the medium, so access point polls the 4 users, and during polling these 4 users, 2 more users added to the network, so they will not be polled immediately. So for them there is a contention period. Okay, so the contention period can be used for two access mechanisms presented above. So during the contention period, polling will not happen, but they will have to compete with each other using previous techniques, that is either CSMA-CA or RTS-CTS, for accessing the medium. So let's see the timing diagram for this entire mechanism. So as you can see at the top of the diagram, this is actually a single diagram. These are not two diagrams. It starts with T0. I will show T0 over here. Here it is T0, and it ends at the T4. Okay, so this is a single diagram starting at T0 and ending at T4. Okay, due to space availability, this is split into the two parts. Okay, so how it works? You can see super frame T0 to T4 is considered as a super frame. There is a contention free period starting at T0 ending at T2. So here contention free period ends. Then from T2 to T4 there is a contention period which will be for later added users which have not been polled by the access point. Okay, so let's see how this works. Now at T0, point coordinator, which is nothing but access point, will try to access a medium for polling the stations. So let's assume that somebody is already transmitting, so medium is busy. So access point has to wait similar to the previous two mechanism before it can try to access a medium. So after waiting for time up to t1 it will wait, and after at t1 it realizes that medium has now become free. Now it will wait for PIFS amount of time before it can start polling. Now since this is PCF, the waiting period is now PIFS. Now why during this time is it possible for other stations to start transmitting? Which those stations which are not using PCF, can they start transmitting? No, because PIFS is less than DIFS. So if there are any stations which are implementing DCF and not the PCF, they still cannot transmit, because polling station will start transmitting because it is waiting for lesser amount of time. Okay, so after waiting for PIFS, it starts polling the first station by sending a data packet D1, that is a polling request. Now it is given to station 1. So here let's say that is a user 1. So user 1 responds with its own response, whatever it wants the medium or it does not want the medium, whatever it is. Okay, after waiting for SIFS amount of time, it sends a response. Okay, then it waits, access point waits for again SIFS amount of time and polls the second station. Again second station responds with the U2, that is whatever response from the second wireless station, after waiting for SIFS amount of time again, and this continues until the third one. Now for third one, let's assume a different condition. Now access point polls the third station by sending D3, but third station is not currently active, so it is not responding. So if it does not respond, access point after waiting for PIFS amount of time polls the fourth station. So remember, third station, that is user 3, is not present in the network right now. It has left the network during access point was polling for D1 and D2, or U1 and U2. When access point was polling for U1 and U2, U3 left. So U3 did not respond. So access point polls the fourth station, and fourth station responds by sending U4. Okay. Now according to access point, all stations have been polled, but during this time U4 came back again or became active again in the network, but polling has ended. Now how to tell the stations that polling is ended? After waiting for SIFS amount of time, access point tells all the stations that contention free period is ended by sending a CF end packet. CF end stands for contention free period end. Okay, so that is ended. So U4 will realize that now contention free period is ended. So how can I access the medium? Sorry, not U4, it should be U3. U3 had left the network, so it should be U3, not U4. Okay, make that connection. So U3 is now back into the network, or back active in the network, but it realizes that contention free period is ended. So here at T2 it has ended, so it can access the medium in the contention period using other mechanisms such as CSMA-CA, that is part-DCF, or RTS-CTS, that is again based on the DCF. Okay, now this is how it works. Now important thing, what is T3 and T4? T4 marks the end of a super frame. So T4 is the end of a super frame. Super frame ends. Now what is T3? Now initially point coordinator or our access point determined that T1 to T3, it is a time that will be required to poll all station. T1 to T3 is a time required to poll all station. All stations nothing but 4 stations. but U3 was absent during the polling. So that period is moved back to now T2. So the new contention free period is T1 to T2. What is T0? We have seen that contention free period was supposed to start at T0, but it did not start at T0, it started at T1 and it should have ended at T3, but due to the absence of U3, it is getting modified for T1 to T2. Okay, so this additional time which is between T2 and T3 is further added into the contention period, so that any new user added into the network can compete with other nodes for accessing the medium. Okay, so at the end of T4, here new super frame starts and procedure repeats again in the similar fashion. So this is how DFWMAC-PCF works, which is rarely used because of obvious limitations. Users are frequently leaving and coming into the network, so PCF does not always provide a good efficiency. So primarily first two methods are used for accessing the medium, but this is also one of the way. So all what I have discussed is mentioned in these statements. At time T0 what happens at T0, what happens at T1, how users are responding, how they are polled, everything is mentioned in these statements. You can read these statements at your leisure, and everything that I have said is written in the format of statements here, so nothing different that is mentioned over here. So it marks the end of as you can see at T4, cycle starts again with the next super frame. Okay, CF end is a end marker for a contention free period. Okay, so that is how DFWMAC-PCF starts. Now we have seen MAC layer. Now in the protocol stack of a WLAN we have seen another layer. MAC layer is a protocol layer. Now there is a management layer associated with the MAC also, that is called as a MAC management layer. Okay, so what are the functions of that? It controls all functions related to system integration. Now MAC protocol layer is regarding accessing the medium by the users. How users can access the medium, that is told by the MAC protocol layer. Now how to find a network and how to associate with the network or disassociate with the network, that is decided by MAC management layer. So it controls all functions related to system integration, that is integration of a station to the BSS, that is basic service set. Remember, this is basic service set, not base station subsystem. Basic service set is a part of a WLAN, and BSS, that is base station subsystem, is a part of a GSM. So basic service set, how it can be connected by a wireless station, that is handled by the MAC management layer. Extended service set, how it can be formed. Combination of two BSS or more than two BSS can be formed as a single network, that is called as extended service set. How to form an extended service set, again that is decided by the MAC management layer. Then synchronization of stations is also handled, how each station will synchronize with the access point. So all these are functions which are primarily divided into four functional groups. First functional group is regarding synchronization. So it performs all the functions related to synchronization. Now what kind of synchronization? Synchronization related to finding a wireless LAN, how to find an available network, that is handled by the MAC management layer. Then managing or synchronizing the clocks of stations with the clock of a access point. Each device in the network, that is wireless network or wireless LAN, will have a hardware which is running on a clock frequency. So internal clock of a mobile device, that is your mobile handset, this clock should match with the clock of a this should be access point. This should match with the internal clock of a access point. Okay, access point. Why? So that frequencies can be matched. If clock does not match, frequencies should match. If clock does not match, frequencies will not match, and that's why clock synchronization is necessary. Then third is a generation of beacon signals. That is also part of a synchronization functional group. So beacon signals are those signals which are sent by the access point to alert all the stations about availability of the access point or presence of access point. So access point announces its presence by using beacon signals. This is the first functional group. Then second functional group is related to power management. As we know, all the devices present in the wireless LAN are either battery supported or they have limited power resources because they will be mobile devices. So their power has to be conserved or carefully used. So functions to control transmitter activity for power conservation, for example sleeping during non-transmission or buffering of data in case of retransmission without missing a frame, that will be done in the power management functional group of a MAC management layer. Then third functional group is regarding roaming. When users change their access point, how to associate them with the different access point, that is associated with the MAC management layer. Again, MAC management, this is very important. Association is MAC management is helping in a authentication of a devices. Okay, association with the network is nothing but authenticating with the devices to avoid any rogue user or intruder from accessing the network. Okay, this authentication mechanism will be covered later on. Then changing the access points, scanning for access point, that is also done by the roaming functional group. And the final functional group is related to management of all the data which is exchanged during this all the processes, that is all parameters representing the current state of wireless station, whether they are active, whether they are inactive, whether they are currently accessing a medium or they are not accessing medium, and current state of access point also. That means whether it is using DCF, PCF, what mechanisms it is using, that is also stored within a database called as a management information base for internal and external access. MIB can be accessed via a simple protocol which we have studied previously also in the previous semester, known as Simple Network Management Protocol. So MIB uses or MIB can be accessed via SNMP protocol. So this is regarding a MAC layer. So this marks the end of a MAC layer of a wireless LAN. Now many private vendors or private users started providing their own wireless LAN products. So each vendor provider started providing a different frequency, different data rate. So it become very complex for the users to comply with all the vendors at the same time. So for example, a vendor creates a wireless product. Now if I am a user, if I want to use services of this wireless product, I need to follow regulations of this particular vendor. Now suddenly second vendor came in who provided a different data rate or better data rate, but its regulations or frequency usage is completely different from the first vendor. Now if I want to access this, I will have to change my handset. So to avoid this complexity, if this is example regarding only two vendors, if there are multiple vendors providing multiple types of services, some are providing good video streaming services, some are providing better security, different quality of support, then one device cannot be sufficient for accessing services of all vendors. These are the vendors of wireless LAN service providers. Okay, so it became a necessity to standardize this upcoming better solutions which are provided by private vendors. So that's why IEEE standardized the original standard 802.11 by upgrading it with the 802.11b. So IEEE 802.11b, it was made available in 99. This is to standardize modifications in the original standard. It was primarily because many vendors started providing better data rate. So the data rates were standard to 4 primarily, that is either 1 Mbps, 2 Mbps, 5.5 Mbps or 11 Mbps. These were the 4 standard data rates that should be supported by all the vendors following the 802.11b. Now because this was now standardized, vendor will either support one of these 4 data rates. So our handset, it will be now 802.11b compliant, so it will support any one of the 4. So there are 4 vendors supporting 4 different data rates, all can be compliant with our handset. So that is the advantage of this standardization. Now why 4? Depending on interference levels, these 4s are decided. So the maximum user data rate, although it is said to have a data rate of up to 11 Mbps, entire data rate is not available for user. Some of that is used for a control packet exchange. So the user data rate available is approximately up to 6 Mbps. Okay, maximum up to 6 Mbps. So you can calculate the throughput. 6 Mbps, that is a user available data rate, divided by 11 Mbps, that is total data rate. So whatever that percentage, that is our throughput. That will be around 56%. That is the throughput of our standard. Okay, so the transmission range was also increased. In case of outdoor free space, 300 meter up to 300 meter coverage can be extended. For indoor, that is inside a building, 30 meter is the maximum distance, and maximum data rate is supported only up to 10 meter. So whatever that is we are mentioning 6 Mbps, that can be achieved only if the user is within the 10 meters of the access point. Okay, so that is the meaning of this. The frequency band that is followed is a ISM band in the 2.4 gigahertz. This is a very popular license free band. It supports many applications like industrial, medical. So ISM band is utilized for transmission of wireless LAN services. So wireless LAN is a one product. Apart from that, there can be industrial services also. There can be medical services also that can be supported. So this is a different types of services or different types of applications using different frequencies. Okay, so ISM band is used for this particular thing, and the physical layer is based on DSSS. DSSS is best physical layer. So no IR, no FHSS, it is based on DSSS. Okay, physical layer is based on DSSS. So it was the first time security was provided in the wireless LAN, but that was a limited security. The protocol that was used for is a WEP, that is wired equivalent privacy. The details of this protocol will be covered in the upcoming videos, and also it used SSID, that is service set identification, for searching for different access point and getting authenticated. So that kind of security is provided. WEP is a security protocol used for authentication, encryption and decryption. So confidentiality, integrity, authenticity, all security or this type of security requirements are fulfilled by this one, but it was not highly secure. The security level was very limited. Why? That will be covered during the details of WEP. Okay, so the availability, this standard complies with most of the vendors. So many products and many vendors were happy with this standardization, and many users were able to comply with all the vendors or most of the vendors available in the market. The connection setup time, that is access point initialization and all those things, it was completely removed. it was a connectionless. The access points were always on, so users can attach anytime and get disassociated at any time. One flaw in this particular standard is it does not provide a quality of service. It uses a best effort services, so no guarantees are assured unless DFWMAC-PCF is used. Unless polling is used, no guarantee of service. So since it is always on, anyone can access the access point or medium by competing with other station. So if they are sending the packets, there is no guarantee of data delivery if using a normal CSMA mechanism, that is CSMA-CA, DFWMAC-DCF, CSMA-CA. Okay, then manageability of the standard, again it was restricted or limited. Why? Because the use of a WEP forced key distribution which is not automated and symmetric encryption. Now these factors will be understood better after studying the WEP. So because of presence of WEP, it was not easy to manage the standard or manage the network using 802.11b. So if any network is using 802.11b, that is not easy to manage that particular network. Okay, so what are the advantages and disadvantages of this standard? Advantages are many installed systems, that is many vendors and many users are supported to that. Lot of experience, because it is slight modification, so most of the users and vendors are already using it, so experience is a lot of available. It is available worldwide. It is using a free ISM band, so no need to purchase any license for availing the services. Then it can be integrated in a laptop also, and it is very simple. So simple upgradation of existing standard. There were few drawbacks also. Since it was using a free ISM band, there are a lot of applications which are using a free ISM band, so the heavy interference on ISM band is observed. So those applications which are not related to WLAN also used to interfere the WLAN communication. So that is one of the disadvantage of using the ISM band. Another disadvantage is lack of QoS, that is no service guarantee. Then slow relative speed only. So 6 Mbps available out of 11 Mbps is a relatively lower throughput. So relative speed that is achieved is much slower compared to expectation. So this is 802.11b. So as the time went on, immediately users and vendors tried to achieve a better data rate for a faster communication. So further in 2001, new standard was standardized by the IEEE, that was called as 802.11a. Okay, it was made available in 2001. The difference in standard 802.11b and standard 802.11a is the main difference, that is data range and a transmission range, data rate and a transmission rate. Most of the other things you will see common. Frequency is also different, so I can say 3 factors are different: data rate, transmission range and frequency band. This is to improve the flaws of a 802.11b and to increase the data rate. So if you see security, this is similar to 802.11b. Availability, that is slightly changed. This is same compared to 802.11b. Quality of service is also similar to 802.11b. Manageability is also similar to 802.11b. So change is in these 3 factors. So what are the data rates? From 6 Mbps to 54 Mbps, that is much higher. Maximum data rate achieved in the user data rate achieved in the 802.11b was 6 Mbps. Now 802.11a starts with the 6 Mbps. So we can imagine how much higher data rate was achieved. So up to 54 Mbps data rate was supported. The throughput now modified to a very good level, like 5.346 Mbps. That means if 6 Mbps data rate is supported, user data rate will be 5.3 Mbps. So if you take a ratio, then it will be around 85 to 90% of throughput. So that is very good improvisation on a throughput. Okay, so for 24 Mbps 18 Mbps user data rate supported, and for 54 Mbps 32 Mbps is supported. So as you move to a higher frequency, the throughput decreases for higher frequencies. Okay, so that is one of the limitation. Then transmission range was changed from 300 meter outdoor to 100 meter outdoor, because primarily wireless LANs are used in a closed space, so there is no point in providing higher range in the outdoors. So 100 meter outdoor was standardized and 10 meter indoor was standardized. So most of the home users were comfortable with 802.11a. Okay, so this data rate supported changes depending on distance, that is up to 5 meter data rate achieved was maximum. But as you move away from the access point, that is if you move away from the access point up to 60 meter, then only 12 Mbps can be achieved. Now one of the flaws of 802.11b was use of a ISM band. Now we are still using ISM band, but ISM band has another frequency range also, that is in the 5 GHz. So the free ISM band in the 5 GHz is utilized, 5.15 to 5.25, 5.25 to 5.35 and 5.725 to 5.825 GHz. These are the three frequency bands which were available in the free ISM band. These are used by the 802.11a. Now physical layer also uses DSSS, but at a much higher data rate. This is also using a DSSS based physical layer, but at a much higher data rate. Security availability is now only for security is same for 802.11a compared to the 802.11b. It is still using WEP. Availability now, since we are using a 5 GHz ISM band, only some products or some vendors used to support that. So there is less availability in the market. Connection time is similar to B version. Quality of service is similar to B version. Manageability is also similar to B version. Now advantages and disadvantages. Now advantage is that it fits into 802.X standard. That means not only the wireless standard but wired standard also fit well with this particular 802.11a standard. Okay, or WMAX, which is a 802.16 standard 16. It's a WMAX, wireless broadband. It is also fitting well with this particular wireless LAN. Okay, again free ISM band, that is advantage. Availability, since some products or some vendors are available, then lesser amount of interference will be there. Simple, again uses less crowded 5 GHz band because of a less number of applications available in the 5 GHz, lesser amount of interference. Drawback is a stronger fading due to higher frequency. So even though interference was less, its impact was larger because of higher frequency. Again, quality of service issue is not addressed in this particular standard. Okay, so that is one of the limitation. So that is the 802.11a. Now that completes the standards and general specifications of wireless LAN 802.11. Now in the next video we will move towards the security which is used in this wireless LAN standards, starting with the WEP. So that's all today. Thank you.